So for your September 22nd through September 23rd folder, if you did all of the Unit 1, Lesson 6, Session 1 through 3, if you did all of that together and did it on the 22nd, then you will have time to do this next one on the 23rd. If you did not, then you can continue on with that video wherever you were with it and go from there. But if you have time, then you're going to go to your September 22nd through the 23rd folder, and you are going to take a look at Lesson 6, Session 4, and we will open this assignment with Cami. And we still are working on the standard of finding the greatest common factor, least common multiple, and then we also want to move on to being able to use distributive property to express a sum of two whole numbers. In your textbook, if you look on page 125, that is where you will find this, 125. You will see an example problem to start it out. So in the example problem, it says, what is the least common multiple of 5, 8, and 10? So this is a way to do that. You would list your multiples of each, and then the smallest one that they have in common would be 40. So this is similar to what we were doing with the last video. So let's take a look at number 1. It says, solve the puzzle from the clues. Show your work. Clue 1, we are two whole numbers less than or equal to 12. Clue 2, our greatest common multiple is 36. Clue 3, our greatest common factor is 1. What two whole numbers are we? So take a minute to think over those and pause the video and try to answer this question on your own. It does give you a clue here. It says, consider this. If the greatest common factor of two numbers is 1, it means that they share no other common factors. So pause the video, take a look at this one, and see if you can solve it. So with this problem, when we're looking at it, when we're looking at our clues, it says we are two whole numbers less than 12, less than or equal to 12. So if we have our whole numbers that are 12 or less, we have 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So it could be any of those numbers. It says our least common multiple of 6. So if I'm looking at these numbers, or 36, our least common multiple is 36. I need to find numbers that would be have 36 as a multiple. So like if I count by that number, I would get to 36. So if I look at my factors of 36, then I see that we would have 1 and 36. Well, that's out because it says greatest, it can't be above 12, right? So those can't be our numbers. 2 times 18, again, that's out, that's above 12. So then we have 3 times 12, well, that would give me 36. 4 times 9, and then of course 6 times 6. So 6 would also be a factor here. So we could possibly be looking at these numbers. It could be 12, it could be 9, it could be 6, it could be 4, or it could be 3. All of those have 36 or factors of 36. So then let's take a look at, okay, do any of these share a factor other than 1? Well, 12 shares a factor with 9, it shares a factor with 6, it shares a factor with 4 and with 3. 9 shares a factor with 6 and 3. So we know we're probably not looking at 6 here. We're not looking at 3. 9 does share a factor with 12. It shares a factor with 6. It shares a factor with 3. So let's take a look at 9 and 4. Let's see if they share any factors. So if I do factors of 9, I have 1 and 9 and 3 and 3. Factors of 4, I would have 1 and 4 and 2 and 2, right? So the greatest common factor here is 1, and that would be clue number 3. And then if I count by 9s, I would have 9, 18, 27. So 9 times 2 is 18, 9 times 3 is 27, 9 times 4 is 36, right? And then my factors of 4, or not factors, I'm sorry, multiples. I have 4, and then 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12, 4 times 4 is 16. And if I kept going, eventually I would get to 36. So the least common multiple for these numbers is going to be 36. So it meets all of our clues. So the two whole numbers are 9 and 4. Let's take a look at number 2. It says Chantel has 45 green balloons and 54 purple balloons to make into bunches for a school celebration. She wants each bunch to have the same number of each color balloon. What is the greatest number of bunches Chantel can make if she wants to use all of her balloons? How many purple balloons will she put in each bunch? And then it says, consider this over in our box. It says, do you need to find the greatest common factor or least common multiple? So take a minute to think about which one you need to find and then find it to see if you find your solution here to number 2. So we would be looking at our greatest common factor. So if we have our factors of 45 and 54, our factors of 45 would be 1 and 45, 3 and 15, and then we have 5 and 9, and those are our green balloons. And then we have our purple balloons, and if we're putting these in groups, we could have 1 and 54, 2 and 27. I'm going to continue the list over here so I don't run into that box too much. 3 and 18, and then 6 and 9. And the greatest number we can find for these is 9. So she can make 9 bunches of balloons. So she can make 9 bunches, and then they want to know how many purple balloons that is. So when we have our purple balloons, 9 times 6 is going to get us to 54, right? So there's 6 purple balloons in each bunch. So 9 bunches with 6 purple balloons in each bunch. And if it asks green, 9 times 5 is 45. So there would be 5 green balloons in each bunch. Let's move on to number 3. What is the least common multiple of 5 and 10? So when we're thinking of multiples, remember it's kind of like counting by that number. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. If we were counting by tens, 10, 20, 30, 40. So take a minute, pause the video, see if you can find the least common multiple of 5 and 10. Hopefully we found that it was 10. If I'm counting by 5s, 5, 10, right? If I'm counting by tens, I start with 10. So the smallest common multiple they have is 10. The next part of the problem says Danielle chose A as the correct answer. How might, or Daniel, sorry, not Danielle. Daniel chose A as the correct answer. How might he have gotten that answer? So A is 1. So that makes me think that maybe Daniel was finding the least common factor and was mistaking factors for multiples, because if we were doing factors of 5, we would have 1 and 5, factors of 10, 1 and 10, 2 and 5, and then the least common factor there would be 1. So I think that Daniel made the mistake of finding factors instead of finding multiples. Let's take a look at number 4. Ignacio buys 3 types of fish. He buys 12 guppies, 9 mollies, and 15 swordtails. He plans to divide the fish between more than one fish tank. He wants to put the same number of each type of fish into each tank. How many tanks should Ignacio use? How many of each type of fish will be in each tank? Show your work. So we need to figure out what we're trying to find here. So he's buying 12 guppies, 9 mollies, 12 guppies, 9 mollies, 15 swordtails. He's going to divide the fish between more than one fish tank. So he's going to put them in groups, right? Anytime we're finding groups that match, we're probably looking at our factors. And we want to see how many fish tanks he's going to use, right? Yes, how many fish tanks should he use? So factors of 12, we have 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. Factors of 9, 1 times 9 and 3 times 3. Factors of 15, we have 1 times 15, 3 times 5. So now that we have those listed, the greatest one that they have in common is 3. So he will have 3 fish tanks. And then it says, how many of each type of fish will he have? Well, if he has 3 fish tanks, and this is our guppies, right? Then he would have 4 guppies in each tank. If this is our, I said mollies. I think that's mollies. If he has 9 mollies, then he would have 3 in each tank. And then for the swordtails, 3 times 5 is 15, right? So he would have 5 swordtails in each tank. So that is our answer to number 4. Let's take a look at number 5. The greatest common factor of 20 and another number is 4. Which of these could be the other number? Select all that apply. So greatest common factor of 20 and another number is 4. So pause the video, take a look at that, and see if you can find the ones that apply. All right, so let's take a look at this. We have 20, right? So let's think of our factors of 20. We have 1 times 20, 2 times 10, and 4 times 5, right? So what are some other numbers over here that would share a factor with 20? Well, 4 would share a factor, right? So we need to check it out and see if 4 is the greatest common factor between 4 and 20. So if we had our factors of 4, 1 and 4, 2 and 2. So the greatest common factor there would be 4. So that's one of our answers. Then we need to check it out for 8. Is the greatest common factor going to be 4? So 1 times 8, 2 times 4 would be our factors for 8. And the greatest one they have in common is 4. All right, and then 10. Well, 4 is not a factor of 10. 4 is a factor of 20, but it has to be 20 and another number. 4 is a factor of 80, but I have a feeling if we did our list, we would find that 4 is not the greatest common factor between 20 and 80. In fact, 20 itself would be a factor of 80 because 20 times 4 is 80. So it does not apply to 80 because 4 is not the greatest common factor. You would have other factors that 20 and 80 share that are larger than 4. So those are our answer choices for number 5. Let's take a look at number 6. Inés finds the greatest common factor and the least common multiple of 10 and 12. She then subtracts to find the difference between the greatest common factor and the least common multiple. What is the difference? Show your work. So she finds both the LCM and the GCF for each of these numbers, for 10 and for 12, and then subtracts the difference. So first start off with the first step, then go to the next step and see if you can find the answer to this question. Okay, so if we're looking at this, then you might be able to do some of this in your head if you're comfortable with your multiplication facts and finding factors. So if I have my factors of 10, I would have 1 times 10 and 2 times 5. If I have my factors of 12, I would have 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 3 times 4. And when I do that, I would see that my greatest common factor between these two numbers is 2. So the GCF, greatest common factor, equals 2. Now I need to find my least common multiple. Well, if I know anything about multiples of 10, I know that I would be going 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. I could list those. If I know my multiples of 12, then I know, if I know my facts for 12, I know that 5 times 12 would be 60. So if I list those first 5 factors, or not factors, first 5 multiples of 12, I have 12, 24, 36, 48, and then 60. And I can see that that's the first number that has a 0. So the least common multiple here is going to be 60. So my least common multiple is 60. And the problem wants us to find the difference between the two. So we're going to do 60 minus 2. So the difference is going to be 58. All right, let's take a look at our next problem. Number 7, tell whether each statement about 20 and 30 is true or false. The greatest common factor is 5. So if we're listing our factors of 20 and 30, right? We know that 1 times 20, 2 times 10, 3 is not a thing here, 4 times 5, and then we don't have 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, and then we get back to 10. For 30, we have 1 times 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10. So greatest common factor being 5 is probably not the case, because we can already see that 10 and 10 is a factor shared between these, and that is definitely larger than 5. So this answer is false. 10 is a common multiple. Well, if we're doing multiples of 20 would be 20, 40, 60, 80. So 10 is not even a multiple. Now 10 is a factor, but not a multiple. So our B choice here is also false. C, the least common multiple is 60. So let's see if that's true. So if I'm counting by 20s, I would have 20, 40, 60, right? Let's see here. We have 30. The next one would be 60, right? So yes, that is true. The least common multiple is, that's true, is 60. And then D, 2 is a common factor. Yes, they share a factor of 2. So that would also be true. So we have false, false, true, true on number 7. All right, with number 8, it says find the greatest common factor of 8 and 12. Show that 8/12 equals 2/3 by dividing the numerator and denominator by 8/12 of 8/12 by the greatest common factor. And then B says show how to add the fractions 1/8 and 1/12 by using the least common multiple of 8 and 12 as the common denominator. Okay, so this problem sounds very complicated, but it's really just a review of what you did with fractions in 5th grade and a little bit maybe even in 4th. So when we find the greatest common factor of 12 and 8, if we list our factors of 8, we have 1 and 8, and then 2 and 4. Factors of 12, we have 1 and 12. 2 and 6, and then 3 and 4. The greatest common factor there is 4. So I can then say that if I have 8/12 and I divide by 4 on the top and divide by 4 on the bottom, 8 divided by 4 is 2, 12 divided by 4 is 3. So that's what it was wanting you to do on A. And then B says that you're going to be adding these two fractions, 1/8 and 1/12. Well, if we remember from previous grade levels, when we have fractions, they have to have the same name, the same denominator. So what you can do is you can find the least common multiple. So if I'm going by 8s, I would have 8, 16, 24. Well, I know already my least common multiple because I know that with 12s we would have 12 and then 24. So 24 is the least common multiple. So then I can convert my fractions. So I would convert 1/8 to 24ths. 8 times 3 is 24. If you do that to the bottom, you do that to the top. 1 times 3 is 3. And then if I'm looking at 12ths, I'm changing that to 24ths as well because I want my fractions to have the same name, the same denominator. 12 times 2 would be 24, so I do that to the top as well. 1 times 2 is 2. So I have 3 24ths and 2 24ths for a total of 5 24ths. So that is what it was asking you to do on number 8. That brings us to number 9, the math journal question. Remember, we just answer these either in your math textbook or on the screen, whichever way you're working your problems today. So it says write 2 different whole numbers that have 6 as their greatest common factor. Explain how you found your 2 numbers, then find the least common multiple of your numbers. So I'm going to let you guys do this one. And as you have questions, ask me. I do want to see your results, so make sure that you answer this question and show it to me, or turn this in. So do your math journal question on your own. Just remember to take it step by step. So 2 different whole numbers that have 6 as their greatest common factor. And then explain how you found your 2 numbers, and then find the least common multiple of your 2 numbers. So there's different possible answers here for this one. So think of 2 numbers that would have 6 as their greatest common factor. All right. I will see you guys in the next video.